So
Oh, this one's way better.
What's that?
So this one's way better.
Oh yeah, it is. So your sun sign, you're in that essence, you're being that on a soul level, you're just radiating it naturally. Your rising sign is your way that you're rising to that highest way that you can make impact in the world. On the software we use, it's going to show that it's at the cusp of the 10th house. If you're interested in knowing real specificity about your life purpose, which is probably everybody in the room, I'll put a video up very soon that will show us another kind of software to really differentiate where that is. It could also be 9th house or the 11th house, which I'm just going to say it right now so you know. It could help you to know a little more specificity about the theme in the house. But just so you know, your midheaven sign, MC, that archetype, whatever that is, Pisces, Aries, or whatever, it's speaking to how you show up in your life purpose, that you're here to contribute your gifts. Then all your gates will inform more information about how that works, right? Then, as you're looking at all of the houses, if you look at where you have a chunk of planets, you have themes in that house. And those planets are going to tell you part of your experience or your role in that house. So, as an example, I'm a Leo sun in the 2nd house. If you're looking at the cheat sheet, but you don't have to because it's more about taking it in, right? The 2nd house is the house of values, self-worth. It's building up with the resources of being who you are. So I am going to be making a living being myself. I have to believe in my worth and my worthiness, right? So your story would be wherever your sun is, that's going to tell you some information. When you think about your sun being in one of those houses, this 1 through 12 is like a cyclic story of our life. 1 is a house of identity. So if your sun is there, you're really here to tap into like, who am I? What am I here for? And I might be helping people learn who they are. Okay? And then our 2nd house, and everybody's ascendant is at the 1st house. That way that we rise, it's like the beginning part of our story. Our 2nd house goes on about our values and our worth that supports our being ourselves. The 3rd one, it continues on, and our 3rd house is us in our extension. People are around us who are closest to it, being around us. It could be our neighborhood, our closer family, our network, and then the next one, 4th, goes a little bit bigger, and that is more of our home and family. Could have some parent feel there too. Then we go into the 5th house, which is creativity and could be sexuality. So now it's like, oh, we're starting to become our own individual now. How do I express myself in the world? Because we're going toward how am I going to start to connect with others. Everything below the line is more about my self-development earlier. This is more about how do I rise out into the public. 6th is, okay, I'm starting to learn all of these pieces now. How do I create daily routines and rituals that are going to support me being who I am? I might get into like my health, my nutrition, what my day looks like every day. So as you're looking to see where you have a bunch of planets, you can start to see storyline themes. Then when we go above the line, we're going more public. You could stop now to look, well, are more of my planets in the southern hemisphere? Are more of my planets in the northern hemisphere? And depending on where you live and what hemisphere you live, we could look at this a little bit differently. Technically in astrology, we wouldn't really call it a hemisphere. We would just, this would be like below the horizon, kind of like not public. People don't see that part of our life so much. They do see this as more in the public. So if you have a lot of planets up here in the public, You probably are gonna have a role in your life purpose. You're here for a reason that's really out in the public. So you might go, oh, I see, that's why that's me, right? Looking at, do I have a lot of planets on the left, or do I have a lot of planets on the right? I know we didn't finish the circle yet. The left is, how do I learn about myself more, yeah, I'm not gonna even talk about that, it's just too confusing. That's fine, I'll keep going with the story. And then 7 is, how do I relate to others? More my one-to-one relationships, significant others, but also one-to-one clients, just one-to-one relationships, making them symbiotic. Then we move into house 8. Now we're starting into collaborating with other people. How do I receive from other people? Could be even investments, and how do I invest with community and having others get involved? This is a good example now of talking about how you might see planets that are across from each other, because we also have a spectrum of the story of how they go that way. Remember how in house 2, I was talking about my worth and how I create my value, how my income ideas of how my income could even come. 8 is literally how I relate to others and collaborate with others, and money comes in my chart that way. Like, how do I gain from this outer world? How does that outer world bring that abundance to me? And then we get into the 9th house. If you have planets there, it's talking to us that we would have a story in our line about exploring, self-discovery, maybe adventure where we're traveling. If you have a lot going on there, you could maybe see that you might go on a pilgrimage, or you might have an idea in your mind, like that's part of like a journey in my life, something like that. Higher education, elementary school is the opposite. So just how we had 9 is like this outer, I'm going out into the world. I'm gonna maybe travel, adventure, higher learning, higher education. 3 is the more inner self aspect of that. So it's like my neighborhood, my elementary school, and who's around me in a closer knit circle, right? So it's a way of growing up this way. 10 is our career, our higher calling, our public work, and we'll see, I'll let you do it, if you were to correlate, how does that come together, okay? Over there, it was our family. How do I work together with the people who are close to me in my family? How do I have a greater family in the world? 10 is about community, and 11 is about community, a greater network, the collective that we might be working with. Over here it was, how do I express who I am creatively? How do I just do that with me? How do I connect deeply? How do I commune with people? How do I creatively express? Then over here it's, how do I do that very thing, but out here in public? So you might see them going across. 12, a house of higher spirituality. We're closing the circle of going back into like another cycle. So it could be letting go of things that don't serve us anymore.
So is it similar to tarot?
Yes, tarot correlates as well. So glad you said that. I'll tell you that story in a second. So this also could be hidden and everybody might not see. Might be like, what are those real deeply spiritual things behind the scenes even? It's about transformation, deep spiritual transformation too, as we create the next reality. Now I'm going to be myself again. You know, kind of is like this story,
So
right?
what if I have empty?
If we have an empty house with no planets, then we look at what's the zodiac sign of it. So all the way around, what zodiac do you have there, right? So if you have Aries, you'll have Aries themes in that house. So no house is actually empty, because we always have the zodiac that's ruling it, and that's the energy.
So my empty is Gemini and Cancer.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna tell you one more thing that's gonna start to be way blowing mind, because it starts to get deeper. You just learned the story kind of how this like a little bit cyclic flow of like to kind of see these going that in a growing, like a growing or like a story of life, right? And you also saw that on your own chart, you have your own planets in those spaces, and you have a zodiac that rules each of those spaces. Put that in the back of your mind for a second to also know what this space means, not even related to you. So without looking at your planets and where your zodiacs are in here, it in and of itself has its own vibe. That's a whole nother layer. Aries is the ruler of the first house. Universally. Everywhere. So now, whatever you got going on in the first house, you also have Aries there. Now it starts to go deeper. Because Aries is not home. Aries isn't at home in their house. In your chart, they're somewhere out over here. So whatever you got going on in this house, especially if it's empty, you could also say, okay, who is the ruler of that house and where are they? Okay? So let's say your house, Gemini, is 11, right? So in Anya's, her house 11 has no planets in it. But she knows that Gemini is her zodiac sign. So Gemini is a lot about sharing ideas, communicating. You have a lot of wisdom. You have a lot of stuff that you want to be helping your people with. It's there. So that's going to be your archetype. Gemini, we could look at what house does Gemini rule out, or what house does Gemini rule? In your chart, it happens to be visiting. It lives here in your world, in your story of this life that you're mastering the game of. And it also actually occupies another place. It's just invisible on your birth chart. And we can look to see what it is because they go in order. Aries, Taurus, Gemini. So the ruler of Gemini is ruling your particular house 11, but Gemini really belongs over here. I know, this is where it gets, let me say it again. Anybody can be doing this with one that's blank for you. In your house that's empty, ruled by Gemini, Gemini's here when you were born. Meaning, all these constellations, your house 11 is imbibed with the energy. It's under the stars. It's written. Your story of how you connect with your people you're serving. There's like Heather with the people she's serving with one love, right? She can look at her 11. I'm sitting here looking at the stars. And that story there, that archetype of those stars influences this. Just like if it was rainy, if it was sunny, that would influence. Right now it was raining on us, whatever the weather was, it's going to influence us. That star energy is going to influence you. So you've got Gemini influencing this. So read about Gemini. Then also realize Gemini also does actually occupy another area. And I need to go get their vibe, right? My mom and dad, they're not with me right now, right? They're not with me. They're someplace else. But they're still influencing me, right? It's not going to physically show. My parents aren't in my house. They're not where I live right now. They're someplace else. But they're influencing me. They're somewhere else right now, but they're influencing me.
So
Your planet's influencing.
Gemini in my 11, it's not in everybody's 11.
It's not in everybody's 11. Ding, 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 right? So everybody's zodiacs are in a different house on their chart. The way, and this is so great, waiting for someone to ask the question. The people who are going to have their charts the same as you have the same what?
Birthday and time and location.
Yes. Yeah. Or
That's very rare.
they have
Same rising.
the same rising sign. They have the same rising sign, right? Because they all go in the same order. So anybody who's a Cancer rising like me is going to have Cancer. And then they're going to have Taurus, they're gonna go in order. Cancer, Leo, you know, like they go all the way in order.
So what's the rising? Where is the rising here? Just ascending?
Okay. Yep. So in your example of the Gemini, Anya, with Gemini being house 3, do you have any planets in house 3?
In house 3, I have stuff.
You have stuff. Okay, so here's the deal. She's got stuff. Exactly, kindergarten. Come back to the story. Everybody can do this for themselves. Gemini is over here occupying your space. But Gemini, house is over there. Gemini's house is over there. Somebody's in it. Somebody's in it.
The
Right?
3 is Gemini?
That's one. Cancer, Leo, no, sorry. We go like this. If we want to know what house and we don't have markers, we always start with Aries and go in order. Aries, Taurus, Gemini. Aries, Taurus, Gemini. So we look at house 3, and do you have planets in house 3?
I don't know what these are. Like I have
Oh,
like
yeah.
mega sign and
Cool. Yeah. So you have Pluto and you have Uranus, right? Okay, so you've got Pluto and you've got Uranus. I happen to know, but you would look at a cheat sheet and go, oh, okay, well, let me go figure out what Pluto means. What are the symbols for Pluto? What's Pluto energy all about? You could even type in, if you're researching, Pluto in the 3rd house. Uranus in the 3rd house. Because now we're developing the vocabulary, right, to know. So I happen to know Pluto's about revolution. It's about big change. You're helping your people probably change. Big way and transform. It's about transformation, baby.
yeah.
And Uranus, breakthrough,
Yes.
innovation, change it up. So here's the way to think about it that kind of brings it down to elementary level.
But it was like the 3rd house you said, it's like school and community.
Right? So so it's like, yeah, exactly. So this is intuitive. It's like, what's the question I have here? The question is, well, this is like my shorter knit, my tighter knit community, my neighborhood. Your people probably want to feel that way with you. They want to feel like you're the next door neighbor.
Yeah, they do.
They don't want you to be an untouchable out here. They want you to be like, yeah, you're part of my fam, you know? You're like, we're tight, we're close, we're tight, right? And that Uranus and Pluto energy are there because they're teaming up with your Gemini. Gemini's here in this house for you. It's not at home. Is it going to let anybody just be in its home when it's gone?
No.
Would you?
No.
Who are you going to let be in your house when you're not there?
Trusted friend.
You got it.
Compatibility.
You got it.
Yeah.
Uranus and Gemini, Uranus and Pluto are trusted friends. I'm going to go look and see what Uranus is about. I'm going to go look and see what Pluto's about. They got my back over here. Their energy's over here. I'm over here with Gemini, but we on the phone. You know? We're on the phone.
I just had
Like, we're texting. You know? Like, they got me. It's not empty. Right?
So I just had an aha moment. So,
Yeah,
so
aha
the-
moments.
So the Gemini, like I still don't know how you're telling me that the 3 is Gemini.
Yeah.
Because the 3 is like universal.
It's the natural order.
It's
The
the
natural-
natural order.
It's not for you.
Where's your chart with the words around it? Does it have it?
Like this.
Aries and then
Yeah.
Taurus and then Gemini.
Aries
Okay.
rules
If you
the
want, you
first
can take a
house.
photo of this. Or, here's another thing, would it be helpful, I have this, for example, in Canva. Because I had the same thing, Anya. I was like, how can I remember those houses that are invisible? They're not even there. The zodiacs, they're like invisible to me. They're not even there.
Yeah.
So I went into Canva. I put my chart like yours in the middle. Then I superimposed these on the outside. Like, what if I gave you this as a free link? You just go in there, you take the template into Canva, and you stick your own stuff in.
Yeah.
Would that be helpful? Yeah. So there's a lot of layers, and it's like, how do these things all go together? If you think of them as people or story, like characters in the story, you could think about how do they all fit together. Remember, it's only kindergarten. all we're doing is learning, what do these words mean?
Yeah.
We have planets, they all have a meaning, and they're someplace on my chart. We have houses, they have meanings, they're on my chart. Then, okay, I also have a gate. So for example, remember how Gemini was over here in your 11th house of like networking in your greater community? Then over here, you have Pluto and you have Uranus. Now you can go to their gate numbers. Uranus might be a deep listener. Maybe Uranus is a deep listener. Maybe Pluto is a aha moment giver. Now you know ways to show up in that house.
Wait, and so how do you get to the gates from the sign, or how do you link them? Is it based on what's in my human design? Okay.
Exactly.
And then where that shows up in the zodiac.
Exactly. So, also if you wanted, I could put this up in the learning community, because then what I did was created the right? So there's my wheel. Now what I started to do is look at, and this would be great with One Love, because now you needed that info before you could think about where do I stick my incarnation cross. That's kind of a big one. I mean, look, we have all those gates to look at. I mean, this, now you know what I've been doing for 20 years, and I barely know myself. This is deep. There's a lot. But you could look at the 4 gates that are your incarnation cross and start to at least plot them and look at, well, what are their main themes? What would be something that we would want to think about if we did that, though? Let's just think about this. Think about what an issue could be, or what's something to be really mindful of. This is a birth chart. It represents the conscious me, the personality, me being a person, not me before I was born the 88 days ago. So of the 4 on the incarnation cross, 2 on the top, 2 on the top on the left, which ones are on our birth chart? Right, right, right. But what I did is I put them all on here. So it would be important for me to realize if I'm putting them all on here, it's just so that I can see what themes they're holding. I put them both together. I superimposed them both. Not a big deal. It helps me learn how I want to, it just helps me learn it, right? But then when I go to look at my birth chart and I see that the unconscious sun isn't there, I just have to realize, oh, well, because it doesn't fit. But I just put them all on there because me looking at my business design, because I know, Anya, you want to do business design, right? You want to know just like what's next, okay? Right? Everybody has whatever they're working on, like the challenges you're moving through. You wanting to love yourself and like know yourself. Lexi wanting to know like how does this fit in relationships, right? So you can look at those 4 main, because there are a lot of gates to look at. But I think a really good starting point, now that you know basic language of human design, basic language of knowing that the gene keys give you those 3 levels of consciousness, which are all the same numbers. They just show it to you in 3 levels of consciousness. So you'll go find the role, maybe you'll read gate 57 or whatever it is, you'll read paragraphs about it, you'll understand what the role is about. Then you can jump over to your or your gene keys and you can say, oh, how can I nutshell that in 1 word at the lower frequency level, another word that's kind of medium, and another word that's higher, okay?